Hold on a second. Are we really doing this again? Are the Atlanta Falcons seriously about to walk into the exact same trap that just blew up in New York Jets' face? Because trading for Haason Reddick right now isn't just risky, it's borderline reckless. And I cannot believe we're even having this conversation. Let me paint you a picture of what actually happened in New York, because somehow people are glossing over the absolute disaster that unfolded there. The Jets traded for Reddick thinking they were getting an elite pass rusher who would transform their defense. Instead, they got a holdout, a media circus, contract disputes, and a player who clearly wasn't happy to be there. And now, after all that chaos, after all that drama, after the Jets essentially admitted they made a catastrophic mistake, the Falcons are supposedly interested in cleaning up their mess? Are you kidding me? Here's what drives me absolutely crazy about this situation. Everyone keeps talking about Reddick's pedigree and his track record like those things exist in a vacuum. Yes, he's had productive seasons. Yes, he can get to the quarterback. But you know what else is part of his track record now? Being so unhappy with his contract situation that he was willing to sit out and tank his own value rather than suit up for the team that traded for him. That's not just a red flag. That's a 5-alarm fire. And the Falcons are apparently considering running straight into the flames. Let's talk about what Atlanta actually needs right now. They need a pass rusher. Absolutely. The lack of consistent pressure on opposing quarterbacks has been killing this defense all season long. But what they need even more than a pass rusher is stability. They need reliability. They need someone who's going to show up, do their job, and not create a massive distraction that derails the entire season. And based on everything we just witnessed in New York, Haason Reddick is the exact opposite of that. Think about the message this sends if Atlanta pulls the trigger on this trade. You're telling your locker room that you're willing to bring in a guy who just held out on another team over contract issues. You're telling your current players that individual demands and personal grievances are acceptable, even when they damage team chemistry and preparation. And you're telling the rest of the league that the Falcons are desperate enough to take on someone else's problem child because they can't find a better solution. That's not strength. That's weakness disguised as aggression. And here's the part that really gets me. The contract situation isn't going to magically resolve itself just because Reddick changes uniforms. Whatever issues he had with the Jets' offer, whatever grievances led to the holdout, those don't disappear the moment he lands in Atlanta. In fact, they probably get worse because now he knows he has leverage. Now he knows that teams are willing to trade for him even after he created chaos in New York. So what's stopping him from doing the exact same thing to the Falcons 6 months from now when he decides he wants more money or a different role or whatever else pops into his head? Let's also address the elephant in the room, the compensation. The Jets are reportedly willing to listen to offers, which tells you everything you need to know about how badly they want to move on from this situation. But here's the problem. Even if the price is low, even if Atlanta can get him for a mid-round pick, you're still taking on all the risk. You're still gambling that a player who just demonstrated he's willing to put his own interests above the team's is suddenly going to become a model citizen in your locker room. And that's not a gamble. That's a prayer. Some people are trying to spin this as an opportunity. They're saying the Falcons should swoop in, take advantage of the Jets' mismanagement, and get a talented player at a discount. But that logic only works if you ignore literally everything that just happened. The Jets didn't mismanage Reddick. Reddick mismanaged himself. He created a situation where he became untradeable, where his value plummeted, where teams around the league are now questioning whether he's worth the headache. And the answer, at least from where I'm sitting, is a resounding no. Here's what really bothers me about this whole scenario. It's reactive instead of proactive. The Falcons are in this position because they didn't adequately address the pass rush in the offseason. They didn't draft the right players. They didn't sign the right free agents. And now they're scrambling at the trade deadline trying to patch holes with duct tape and hope. And that's exactly how you end up making desperate moves that blow up in your face. That's exactly how you end up with a Haason Reddick situation where you're paying premium money for damaged goods. And let's be brutally honest about what this would mean for Atlanta's future. If they trade for Reddick and give him the contract he wants, they're committing significant cap space to a player who's already shown he's willing to hold out. They're betting that his production will be worth the drama, worth the distraction, worth the risk that he does this all over again in a year or two. And based on what we've seen from other high-maintenance players around the league, that bet usually doesn't pay off. I keep hearing people say, but what if he just needed a fresh start? What if Atlanta's the right fit? And you know what? Maybe Reddick comes to Atlanta, falls in love with the organization, plays out his mind, and becomes a defensive centerpiece this team desperately needs. But that's a lot of maybes. That's a lot of hoping that a player who just torched his relationship with his previous team is suddenly going to become a different person. And hope is not a strategy. The other argument I keep hearing is that the Falcons are one piece away from being a legitimate contender, and Reddick could be that piece. But that's not how team building works. You don't become a contender by bringing in high-risk, high-maintenance players and crossing your fingers. You become a contender by building a culture of accountability, by surrounding your young core with veterans who lead by example, by making smart, calculated decisions that prioritize long-term success over short-term fixes. And trading for Haason Reddick is the exact opposite of that philosophy. Look, I understand the appeal. I understand why. On paper, this looks like it could work. A talented pass rusher becomes available. The Falcons need a pass rusher. It seems like a match made in heaven. But football isn't played on paper. It's played by human beings with egos and emotions and contract demands. And when those human beings have already shown you who they are, when they've already demonstrated that they're willing to prioritize themselves over the team, you need to believe them. So here's my take, and I'm going to be as clear as I possibly can. If the Atlanta Falcons trade for Haason Reddick, they are making one of the biggest mistakes of this regime. They are taking on massive risk for a questionable reward. They are gambling that a player who just created chaos in New York is somehow going to be the solution to their problems in Atlanta. And that's not just bad business. That's organizational malpractice. The Falcons need to walk away from this. They need to find another solution, whether that's developing the young players they already have, making a different trade for a more reliable veteran, or simply accepting that this season might not be their year and focusing on building for the future. Because bringing in Haason Reddick isn't going to solve their problems. It's going to create new ones. And in a league where chemistry and culture matter just as much as talent, that's a price Atlanta simply cannot afford to pay. But hey, that's just my take. Do you think the Falcons should roll the dice on Reddick and hope the Jets just didn't know how to handle him? Or is this a disaster waiting to happen that Atlanta needs to avoid at all costs? Drop your thoughts and comments below. And don't forget to subscribe because we're going to be breaking down every move the Falcons make as this trade deadline chaos unfolds.